after some period of time, while I was an atheist, I figured out that all the discoveries Galileo has made are covered in 10 verses of the Rig Veda,
Wow.
which is in the first chapter of my book.
You start with saying all the Western scientists from Isaac Newton to Copernicus have merely plagiarized the Vedas. Don't you think that's a bit of a serious allegation or a serious charge to make?
Yeah, it is a serious charge, but it is also a profound charge. I mean, because it would be serious if I would not have the evidence. From India, so far only 2 books have gone to NASA's library. One is the Bhagavad Gita and my book.
You must be very proud about that.
Yeah.
What about in ISRO? Do they have a copy?
Not yet.
Not yet.
S. Somnath, the chief of ISRO, he has a copy. Meaning Chinese culture was essentially Sanatani culture for 2000 years.
In Hinduism, it is believed that any strong spiritual tendencies are a carry forward from a past life. Maybe that explains why our young guest on this episode of Buzz by the Bay is not obsessively gaming or doing whatever it is that 17-year-olds typically do, and instead is busy discovering the wisdom of the Vedas and writing about it. Very pleased to have with us in the studio teenage author and Sanatani Vivaan Karulkar.
Glad to be here.
Thanks Vivaan, thanks for joining us, and you have a very interesting profile. You're probably the youngest person I've had on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've written a book, The Sanatan Dharma, the true source of all science, which I want to talk about in detail. But before that, I mean, how did you develop an interest in this subject, a very deep and profound subject?
So actually, I did not have interest for the entire of my life. I got the interest last year in April 2023.
Okay.
But then that is the reason why I got the interest is because from childhood I was interested in science, and I was interested in authors like Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Stephen Hawking. And because of reading all of them and watching YouTube videos as well, I got an idea of how to detect near Earth objects,
Wow.
NEOs, asteroids, and that was an invention I got in my mind, which even NASA is working for it, but they did not get the solution. They have certain problems with detecting asteroids, and so I fixed those problems.
Oh.
And what is costing them billions of dollars, I am doing free of cost. And that's when I figured that out. So I became a fan of Galileo while I was researching for that.
Okay.
Like there was I had to research on stars and planets for the experiment, and then I became a fan of Galileo. And then after some period of time, while I was an atheist, I figured out that all the discoveries Galileo has made are covered in 10 verses of the Rig Veda,
Wow.
which is in the first chapter of my book.
Okay.
So and then I became a fan of the Vedas.
Very interesting, from being an atheist, being very interested in science, to discovering that a lot of scientific inquiry did happen, you know, in the Vedic period and amongst the rishis and the great maharishis.
Actually, all of it. I mean, that's
All
the
of
cl-
it. That's
the
what
claim.
you say. Okay, all of it. Interesting. I'm going to come to that. I'm going to ask you about that. Come to your book in specifically, because I have gone through a bit of it. And it's pretty amazing about your NEO and the pre-patent that you have. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But let's talk about yourself first. Okay, so in your family, are people also interested in Sanatan Dharma, your parents?
Yeah, they are interested. I mean, we are from RSS background, and
Okay.
So overall they're interested, but their main work is in business and
Okay.
entrepreneurship, all of that.
Okay, so definitely there is that background, you know,
Yeah.
that interest in Hinduism and that inclination towards it. That's wonderful. I also study the Vedas, and you know, I also am a part of Vedanta classes, and you know, pretty amazing some of the information and some of the knowledge and the wisdom in the Vedas. You've authored a book on a very profound and complex subject, which usually takes a lifetime to study. You're only 17 years old.
Yeah,
You're in college, I presume, right?
yeah, completed 12th. Yeah.
What are you studying in college?
Now I'm doing BCom in finance.
BCom in finance.
Yeah.
Okay, so not the science stream.
No.
You're not going into the science stream. Well, what about, you know, some would consider 17 as a little inexperienced to write on such a deep subject. What would you have to say to people like that?
See, the problem is not that I'm just 17. The problem is I'm also in Sanatan Dharam for only 8 months. So actually it's more inexperience than the average person has. but actually I'm well experienced in science compared to the average person because of the patent also, and of that I'm interested since the age of 11.
Since 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're interested in science since the age of 11, and now, of course, in more into Sanatan Dharma and in the roots of what you say is the roots of all the scientific discoveries.
So I was interested in research since the start, and with my research I came to know these facts, and I wrote a book on it. So extensive research has been done since last 8 months.
You did it on your own, the research?
Yeah.
How would you explain Sanatan Dharma in simple terms to people your age, teenagers, who maybe, don't have that level of interest in the subject or even exposure to the subject? How would you explain Sanatana Dharma in a simple way?
See, Sanatan means eternal, and Dharam, the basic translation is a duty that upholds. So Sanatan Dharam is eternal duty that upholds, or eternal action that upholds the universe. So whether it might be a action that happens unconsciously, like objects in the universe which have motion and everything, or it can be consciously through the Jivatma or humans. So what action upholds the universe? Sanatan Dharma is on that, and the knowledge about it. And this knowledge, the rishis, the Saptrishis, they are received through deep meditation. So that is basically Sanatan Dharma.
Okay. So what upholds the universe? As you've explained it very nicely. Thank you. Sanatan is eternal, Dharma is your purpose or your duty. So the laws which uphold the universe essentially is Sanatan Dharma. Very, very nicely explained, and I'm sure that the way you've explained it is a way that young people can relate to. You've simplified it very nicely. Coming to your book, the Sanatan Dharma, the true source of all science. I started reading it. At the start of the book, you start with saying, all the Western scientists from Isaac Newton to Copernicus have merely plagiarized the Vedas. Don't you think that's a bit of a serious allegation or a serious charge to make?
Yeah, it is a serious charge, but it is also a profound charge. I mean, because it would be serious if I would not have the evidence. But as I have the evidence, it became profound. And as I was saying about the extensive research, whatever scientists I knew about initially, I took their names and I took all the discoveries they made, and I found the verses in the Vedas for the discoveries. So I have covered around like 100 to 150 scientists, main scientists.
Okay.
And so I have requested in my book as well that in case anybody comes up with a certain discovery which a Western scientist did and is not in the Vedas, then I am ready to revoke the claim. So I have actually gone more towards the profound side rather than the serious side.
More the profound side. So you put that disclaimer in your book. If somebody else wants to challenge it, they will. So look, I don't have that kind of knowledge on the scientific discoveries. Yes, I am a student of Vedanta, Advaita Hinduism for sure, Adi Shankaracharya, and I read a lot of Swami Vivekananda and things. I haven't done the research that you have on the scientific discoveries. So I will leave it to you to tell us a few of the verses in the Rig Veda. But before that, yes, you are right. The Vedas contain profound wisdom and a wide range of scientific concepts, including algebra, structure of the universe, astronomy, concepts of time, psychology, surgery, But wouldn't you say that science builds on collective knowledge? It progresses incrementally. It's a process of cumulative discovery rather than ownership by any culture.
So basically that's the scientific method, right? Like you have a theory, you test the theory, you get a conclusion, and then you move forward. That's the cumulative growth that science builds upon. But wherever the cumulative thing is leading us, all those things are already written in the Vedas. And the reason being, all that accumulation that we expect the civilization to do over thousands of years are already done in the minds of the Saptrishi, because their minds were so profound that what we would discover in thousands of years of scientific method, they have already thought in their mind. And because of that, so if all the things what we are finding from the scientific method are already written in a book, it would be logical to refer to the book and try to find out if we can see more discoveries which we have not thought of yet.
Okay, so you're saying everything was thought through. from my understanding, the rishis, okay, they believed in more intuitive knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It came to them intuitively. That's what Vedanta believed, right? Believes in. In the West, science, they believe in more sort of evidence-based. But you're saying the rishis had all that evidence as well.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, I mean, personally, I believe that the word plagiarism is a bit of a serious, it is a bit of a bold claim and a bit of a serious charge to make, because, it is a collaborative effort. You discover something. How do you take it forward? How do you reach this stage of scientific discovery where we are at? Right? I mean, you build on what's been given to you in the past. And actually, the nature of knowledge, one can say that the nature of knowledge is open. Many ancient cultures like the Vedic, the Greek, the Chinese, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, they all contributed foundational knowledge. And scientists later built upon this, right? Have you had an interest in other civilizations or studied some of their scientific discoveries?
Yes, and I've also mentioned them in my book.
Okay.
And in my podcast, I spoke about, which I have a podcast, a channel.
Okay.
So on that, I spoke about Mesopotamian as well. Like the claim is that by the West, that Mesopotamia discovered wheels.
Okay.
They were the first one who invented wheels. But then actually prior to their existence, prior to the civilization itself, the Vedas have already mentioned about wheels thousands of times. So even those civilizations, whatever science they came up with, was already in the Vedas, in the books.
But some of those civilizations existed before the Vedic period.
Yeah, actually the Vedic period is flawed because we have innumerable evidences that the Vedas are at least 6,000 years old, whereas the Vedic period they are claiming to be 1000 BCE to 1500 BCE. That's 3,000 years ago. But there is almost zero evidence for that. And Vedas are at least 6,000 years old. I have mentioned several evidences in my book.
Okay.
Like the Kalpa Vigraha idol, the Saraswati river, and then Abdul Kalam. He has said that based on the evidence, Ramayana was written in 7000 BCE, which is far older than the Vedic period is said to be.
Okay.
And the Vedas are older than Ramayana also. So then the Vedic period is flawed by that sense.
So you're saying it's flawed, the Vedic period, that there's enough evidence to show that it's older than what people acknowledge.
Yeah.
So here's the issue, right? Every culture is going to claim that their culture is the strongest and that their culture was the most advanced or discovered this and it discovered that. If you take the Egyptian culture, which was around 3000 BCE, it's supposed to be around then.
Yeah.
They also apparently had phenomenal geometric calculations. If you look at the construction of the pyramid,
Correct.
It's pretty amazing, right? And I'm not trying to devalue our own, devalue Vedic culture. I mean, a lot of knowledge has come, and great scientists have acknowledged this. Whether it's Einstein talking about the Upanishads, Oppenheimer, Tesla, Schrödinger, they have all acknowledged the wisdom in the Upanishads. And you must have done your research on all these scientists and how well they were influenced.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, sometimes we have a tendency, everybody wants to show that their own culture is the most advanced.
So you mentioned about the pyramids. The pyramids in Egypt are not the oldest pyramids. The oldest pyramids are actually in Uttar Pradesh. They are the Achichetra pyramid. And the Saqqara pyramid is the oldest pyramid in Egypt. There are 4 pyramids. 4 of them were built in different time periods. So the Saqqara pyramid is oldest 4,600 years ago. But the Achichetra pyramid is 5,000 years old. And it is been carbon dated and proven. And it is said that Drupad had built it, the father of Draupadi. But either ways, we have the proof that it is 5,000 years old.
Okay.
So meaning a very advanced civilization existed prior to the Egyptian civilization.
There have been scientists in ISRO who make the same sort of claims as you are making. And I'm not saying that these are not correct. Yes, they're like I said, there's immense amount of wisdom and initial, scientific discovery. But like I also believe that it's an incremental process. Coming to ISRO, right? Somnath, the chairman of ISRO, has also said that scientific knowledge in the Vedas traveled to Europe through Arab countries and was subsequently posited as discoveries of scientists of the Western world.
Yeah.
In a way, you have basically echoed what he said, right? How so? Would you agree with that? Is that how Vedic knowledge reached the West? Is it through the Arab countries? What has your research shown you?
Yeah, initially it went to the Arab countries, and as Somnath, the ISRO chief, he has said the claim of mine. So that means that is one more authentication to my claim, and but it's not just that is the beginning when it went to the Arab countries and it went to the West. But after that, when the West came here as colonizers, they took in more information. When the Portuguese came here, they took in more information. And I mentioned in my book that when the Britishers came here, they essentially burned all the gurukuls, and there was around at least 4 to 7 million of gurukul acharyas were killed in the process. And so in that period also they plagiarized a lot of information.
Okay.
And so it's a ongoing process, the plagiarism.
I like that. It's an ongoing process, the plagiarism. Okay. Well, I mean, we can agree to disagree on the word plagiarism, right? I mean, we can, because yes, I totally agree the Vedas offer early insights into many scientific concepts, and you're totally, absolutely right there. Plagiarism might be, taking it a stretch too far, at least I'm just saying, in my opinion. But first, let's talk about your NEO, your near-Earth objects. Fascinating. At the age of 14, you secured a pre-sanction of a patent for detecting near-Earth objects. What is a near-Earth object, and what is? If you can tell us a bit about this pre-sanction of your patent.
So basically, the asteroids that are very small, or they are moving very fast. Small in the sense the diameter of 1000 meters or less, and they are moving very fast. It is hard to detect them. Based on the current method, we just click a bunch of pictures, and we hope that we'll see an object moving. Because the stars, they are very still, but the asteroids will move a little bit on the image. So on that basis we can detect it. But if it's small, we can't see them, and if it's moving very fast, we won't notice it through the images. So those are the two issues with it. So I essentially combined two devices, one a telescope and one a thermal camera, and I devised a program through which whatever the situation of the asteroid is, based on the color coding, we can detect it.
When will this patent be granted, or is it in the process of being granted?
The global search is cleared, meaning that so far no one has thought of this combining of two devices, the innovation that I have done.
Okay.
Like I have also made a program for it, an entire calculations, everything.
Wow.
And so the global search is clear, but now the final patent I'll receive after final certification I'll receive after the experiment is submitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
After the experiment is submitted.
Yeah.
So when will you submit the experiment?
Within a month, because the first experiment was submitted. They wanted more details, so I'm on to that now. The weather is not clear, so.
I read something that your book, a copy of your book, is in the NASA library.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, next to the Bhagavad Gita.
How amazing.
So from India, so far only 2 books have gone to NASA's library. One is the Bhagavad Gita and my book.
You must be very proud about that.
Yeah.
What about in ISRO? Do they have a copy?
Not yet.
Not yet.
S. Somnath, the chief of ISRO, he has a copy.
He has a copy?
Yeah.
Have you met him?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I'm sure you will meet him soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but another question aside from all this is, why are you studying commerce then? You should be you should be doing science. You made all these discoveries and everything.
I'm interested in self-research. So I was like, I will do the basic things in education system, but then I'll study by myself, the science and the Vedas, everything.
Okay. Again, coming to ISRO chairman, he had made another remark which I found very interesting, that engineers and scientists like Sanskrit a great deal. It suits the language of computers, and those learning artificial intelligence learn it. Lots of research is being done on how Sanskrit can be used for computation. You must be aware of this, right?
Definitely, yeah.
You have written something on AI in your book. One of the chapters in your book is on AI, right?
Yeah, Sanskrit, the gateway to AI. Yeah.
Sanskrit, the gateway to AI. Tell us a little more about that.
So basically the rules of grammar that are in Sanskrit, they are very similar to the rules of grammar we use for coding and AI. The structure of the language, everything about the language is very beneficial to AI. So if AI won't support English as much as it will support Sanskrit. But I have also mentioned in my book that although Sanskrit is the gateway to AI, but binary language, binary numbers, they are also mentioned in the Atharvaved, for which I have given verses, and Acharya Pingla has also spoken about them.
Okay.
So keeping that in mind, Sanskrit is a very beneficial language to the AI.
Please give us some interesting examples from your book regarding scientific discoveries in the Vedas. Like you speak about the Vedas reveal the shape of the earth. Can you tell us about the verse?
Yeah, so the verse is Chakrakasa Parinaham Prithviya, meaning that the earth is the shape of an oblate spheroid, the literal translation of the verse. And they say that Newton discovered this 400 years ago, but that is falsified because it's in the Vedas prior to that. And Pythagoras was the first person who had thought that the earth might be round. And then soon they figured out after 1000 years that it actually is round by the process of culmination. And finally, 400 years ago, Newton said that it is oblate spheroid. But then that 2000 years of work was already covered in one verse of the Rig Veda, the 2000 years of culmination. And so that's one of the discoveries. And then discovery of atom is in the Vedas, Parmanu. Even Vedas has written about it in the Bhagavatam as well.
Yeah.
The smallest indivisible particle. Then there is gravity is there, laws of motion are there, and scattering of light is there.
It is true. I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom taken from a lot of ancient cultures, including the Vedas. But personally, I believe there must be a lot of information or wisdom taken from even other ancient cultures like Mesopotamian, like the Egyptian, like the old Chinese cultures. And I'm sure that somewhere along the way the source of it got lost, and then people have claimed it as their own. I'm sure that has happened a lot, and you've done a lot of studies on it, and you're providing a lot of evidence in your book.
Well, actually, there is an authentic writer. I can't recall the name.
Okay.
But he has said that at one point in history, because of Bodhi Dharma, the Indians they ruled the Chinese culture for 2000 years without sending a person through the border.
They ruled the Chinese culture?
Yeah, meaning Chinese culture was essentially Sanatani culture for 2000 years.
Really?
Yeah, and all of these cultures that you mentioned about, Mesopotamian, Chinese, all of them, even Japanese, they all came after the Vedas were written. So they are essentially what I would categorize under West itself. Under West. Like I am saying West has plagiarized the Vedas. So they come under the West.
So you're saying according to your research, is revealed that all of these, or you say you have proof that all of these cultures came after, all of these civilizations came after the Vedas.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, you are aware that people will refute what you're saying, right? That going back to the point that each culture always believes they are the greatest, right?
Yeah,
and that's the origin of wisdom.
They have to provide evidence for that.
Well, they will provide. If you ask someone, I'm of the opinion that everyone will be able to provide some evidence. There are people who say in Egyptian culture there was like texts revealed sophisticated medical knowledge, such as the Edwin Smith papyrus, the surgical treatise. Egyptian mathematicians developed techniques and geometry, like we spoke about. Ancient China contributed significantly to astronomy.
Actually, my book is the 25th most sold book in Hinduism.
Really?
Yeah, so around more than 60,000 copies have been sold through Amazon. And in my book, I have claimed that if any culture so far, if they want to come up with certain discovery that is not in the Vedas, that they did, then I'm ready to revoke the claim.
Okay.
So far, it's been around 6 months since I launched the book. So far, I've gotten zero response.
Okay, you've gotten zero response.
I went to the UN. I was the youngest speaker in UN. Like Malala was 18 when she went to UN. I was 17.
Wow.
So I was the youngest speaker in UN, and there also no one objected. So
no one objected.
No one had evidence to object.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for a response. Yeah.
Coming to the Hanuman Chalisa, there's a chapter in your book on the Hanuman Chalisa, where you say, and I myself am a big believer in the Chalisa. One of your chapters says that talks about the Hanuman Chalisa's cosmic calculation.
Yes.
I'm aware of that because I've read that in other places as well. You said the Hanuman Chalisa provides an astonishingly accurate calculation of the distance between the earth and the sun.
Correct, yeah.
In that line, Yug Sahasra Jo Jan Par Bhanu Lilyo Tahi Madhur Phal Janu. Right?
Correct.
Beautiful line. So, can you explain this calculation to us? I mean, what does these two lines really say? Yug Sahasra Jo Jan Par Bhanu Lilyo Tahi Madhur Phal Janu. I know that means that Hanuman tried to, reach out for the sun thinking it's a sweet fruit, a mango or a sweet fruit. But how does this line show the distance between the earth and the sun? Calculate the distance.
Firstly, what I spoke about in the chapter is that this line, Yug Sahasra Jojan, is actually in the Hanuman Chalisa. But the Hanuman Chalisa came 500 years ago, whereas the Vedas again 28,000 years old.
Yeah.
And my claim is pertaining to the Vedas.
Okay.
So why did I mention Hanuman Chalisa? Reason being because prior to the Hanuman Chalisa, in the Vedas also, the distance between the earth and sun and the distance between earth and moon, both are mentioned. And also their ratio is mentioned, which is 108, the ratio between the two. So that was the first thing I began my chapter with.
Yeah.
Then the calculation is Sahasra means 1000 and Yug is the time period of one particular Yug.
Yeah.
And Jojan is the distance like miles. So when you multiply all of that, you get the distance between earth and sun.
Yeah. No, that's quite incredible.
Yeah.
But as you said, the Hanuman Chalisa was written by Tulsi Dasa just 500 years ago, but this knowledge was already in the Vedas thousands of years before that.
Yeah.
So, but it's quite amazing itself that the Hanuman Chalisa mentions it, right?
Yeah, it is amazing.
It is quite amazing that, because again, a divine yuga is 12,000 divine years, as I said, right? The combination of all the 4 yugas.
Correct.
Right? And then Sahasra, as you said, means 1,000, and 1 yojna is equal to approximately 8 miles. So 12,000 into 1,000 into 8 comes to about 96 million miles approximately, which is the distance of the earth and the sun.
Right.
So that's quite an amazing calculation to have right there in the Chalisa. Vivaan, you're working on another book.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little about it?
So actually this book was the Sanatan Dharam, true source of all science. Modern science is plagiarism of the Vedas. My next book is the Sanatan Dharam, true source of all technology.
Okay.
Meaning modern technology is plagiarism of the Vedas. Now that will be more harder to prove because technology is considered more modern than science.
Okay.
So it will be harder to prove. But like for example, electromagnetic forces, electromagnetism, that is used for communication across the world. So in a particular Atharvaved verse, they have mentioned what is electromagnetism, the definition, and they have said that we use this in real time. They use it to communicate across the world. They have mentioned these things, and so all the ideas of technologies like telephone, Wi-Fi, all of these ideas were already in the Vedas.
Even Wi-Fi?
Even Wi-Fi, yeah. All of them were in the Vedas. Now I don't know whether they actually used it or not, but I can see in the book that they know about it.
Like, can you give us some more examples? Like Wi-Fi, can you give us some example?
Yeah, so same thing, that whatever is required. I can give you another example as well.
Okay, whatever example you want to give us.
Because Wi-Fi we should keep a mystery little.
Okay, fine. Whatever example you want to give us, tell us.
So electricity is mentioned in the Vedas. Then I said about wireless communication.
Yeah.
Batteries are mentioned in the Vedas. Aeroplanes are mentioned. And actually I'll go a little bit in detail.
Yes, please.
About the aeroplanes thing.
Sure.
Because people assume, there's a public misconception that Pushpak Viman is a Viman in the Ramayana, and so that's why we had Viman. Although Pushpak Viman is also a genuine Viman, but we had another one called as Tripura Viman, and it is in the Viman Shastra, Viman Puran. There is an entire scripture on Vimans. And recently in 2019, Travis Taylor, he is a PhD in California University, he proved that the Tripura Viman can actually fly. Based on what is written in the scriptures, he actually flew it. So then we have actually a working model of the airplanes in the Vedas.
A working model.
Working model, yeah.
Tripura Viman. Any idea when it dates back to the book?
When Maharishi Bharadwaj wrote it.
Okay.
And his grandsons have written the Vedas.
Okay.
Yeah, so meaning the same period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite detailed that there was actually just one text on Viman, you know, which,
Yeah.
and you said that someone has actually made a working model of that based on what's written and flown it.
Yeah, they have also mentioned in that what kind of food the pilot should eat, what clothes they should wear, at what time they should fly, and all
Really?
of that matches with what we use today.
I'm glad that you have this urge to discover. I mean, that's really great, you know. But also Advaita Hinduism also teaches us about, you know, a lot of, I guess Advaita Hinduism also teaches us a lot about humility, like you say, vinamrita.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
know, we don't have to become, as you say, egoistic about all our achievements. I guess that's one reason why, you know, it's sort of downplayed. I don't know. Also, a lot of it has been lost, you know, because of colonial rule, because of invasion. So, a lot of, you know, that knowledge has been attributed to other people.
Correct, yeah.
You know,
Other cultures.
I'm going to end with, you know, what is the most important lesson you have personally learned from your study of Sanatan Dharma that, you know, allows you to live a happy, successful life? Personally, what is the greatest lesson you can take from the Vedas?
If I had to take a lesson, then I can take that of controlling the mind. For example, like you identify identify a object which will give you pleasure, and then the process goes on, but you can stop it over there. So that particular thing, controlling the mind, or deciding where the mind can go over a period of time, training it, and that can be done. But actually, the acharyas, what they've said is, or anybody, even Newton, Einstein, they have said that whatever text is there, any text, Western or any culture or Vedas, you need to read it with the intent it was written.
Okay.
So the intent of the Vedas was not to live a happy, successful life only.
Okay.
The intent of the Vedas was to escape from the cycle of birth and death
Yes.
and go to Vaikuntha or goal of Vrindavan. That was the goal of the Vedas initially. So always, I would always advise people to remember the true intent of the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita. It is to connect, it is to receive God for eternity rather than just live a material, successful life.
Right, absolutely. And when I meant successful, I didn't really mean only material.
Yeah.
I mean, successful life means being happy. And as the Gita says, and so much of our Shastras say, that happiness should not depend on any external factor, right? Happiness comes from within. It's not as such dependent on any external factor in the external world. You are most successful when you learn to be happy and equanimous
Yeah.
under all circumstances. And you can do that by training the mind. So that's a great lesson. Glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that. Thanks, Vivaan. It was really fun talking to you and I learned a lot. Thank you so much for coming on Buzz, by the way.
Thank you.